All right. Hi, you guys. Today I did trade. I did make a profit today, and this is kind of like another trade recap video where I wanted to show how I entered and exited my trades and kind of like what strategy I used to form a bias. Um, Today, at the end of this video, there will also be like a little recap of like me actually taking the trade, so I can prove to you guys that I'm actually taking these trades and not just developing a hindsight bias to say, oh yeah, like right here, of course, like the market will go up. Um, so yeah, that's gonna be a part of this video too, but it's gonna be at the end. So if you wanna skip ahead and watch that, you can, and come back to this. Um, yeah. I am gonna show though about the area where I took this trade. It was about a um 2-to-1 trade. It was somewhere around here at this candle. That's about the trade that I took today. So yeah, let's go ahead and see. I did end up making a sticky note today, this morning when I was trading, because I realized in the last trade recap video I didn't do something like this. And to people who are new to trading or still trying to figure out their own strategy, I feel like that this sticky note will help and kind of like inform you guys how to develop your own bias when trading. So hopefully this will help because it took me a while to figure out this kind of setup and develop like a good discretion to use it, because obviously not every day you're going to go through this list exactly bullet by bullet and develop this strategy. This is kind of just like an overall plan that you can use to develop your daily bias and how to move around it if it does change, because the markets are unpredictable, and having a good strategy, having a good set plan before you enter or exit a trade is the key to having a good trade. So, yeah, let's see what I did here today. So, the first thing on this list that I did this morning is I went ahead and marked out last week's high and low. So, if I go to last week for MNQ, um, so I don't know how to get rid of these. Comment down below if you know how to get rid of these. They're kind of annoying. It's probably something in the settings, but I have not figured it out. So this is this week's candle, and this is last week's candle. And I'm just gonna mark out the high and low of this candle. Because we have been on such a bullish run, I doubted that, the market was gonna come down here, but you never know. So marked out last week's high and low. All right, that's good. Next bullet point is last day high and low. Oh, before I forget, I'm also gonna mark it out on MES. So this was last week's high for MES, and you just see, I doubt the market is going to go all the way down here, so I'm actually not going to mark out last week's low for MES, just because I doubt in one single day the market is going to move down that much. Last day high and low. So I'm going to go over to MNQ, go on the day time frame, and we're going to mark out what exactly is happening here. So yesterday was the 21st. So this blue candle right here is for New York session. New York session already ended, and so this was for today. Yesterday's candle was actually this black little Doge candle. So I'm just going to mark out the low for yesterday. Oh my god, why is that so bad? Alright, here's the low, and you can tell that this was the line that we made for last week's high, and it actually matches almost perfectly with yesterday's high. So I don't have to make another line, but this is yesterday's low. Now we're going to do the same thing on MES. Alright, so this is actually the candle for New York session opening tomorrow. This was today's. This is yesterday's. Again, the high pretty much matches with last week's high. So all I have to do is mark out yesterday's low of this black candle, just about right there. Alright, so we marked out those, and the next thing I did was mark out the session highs and lows on the 1 hour time frame. So the session highs and lows, so depending on what, oh my god, hi. Depending on what session that you trade on, I trade on New York session, you're going to want to mark out the session highs and lows of the other two sessions. So I don't trade Asia and London session, so I would go ahead and mark out the highs and lows of Asia and London. If I did trade, say, London session, I would mark out the highs and lows of New York session and Asia session. So you don't have to mark out, obviously you're not going to know the highs and lows of today for New York session when you're trading New York session. So just keep that in mind when you're marking them out. So let's go ahead and, because I trade New York session, let's go ahead and mark out Asia and London session. And I did it on the 1 hour time frame. So New York session opens at 9:30 a.m. and pretty much London session closes at around 9:30 a.m. So let's go on the 1 hour. Expand this a little bit because we were in the day. Alright, let's see where we're at. So we want to go to market open, wherever that was. Alright, 6 a.m. and this is 7 a.m. So right in between these two candles right here, this Doge and this blue candle, is where market opened for New York session and closed for London. So I'm going to go to the candle that's right before that, which is this Doge candle. And we're going to keep this candle in mind. And then we're going to go to 1 a.m., which is when London session opens. So London session opening right here at this blue candle. So look at the difference between where this blue candle is and where this Doge candle is. This blue candle has a lower low than this Doge candle. So this is our low for London session. So I'm going to mark out that this blue candle is the low for London session. And that would make, now we're comparing the tops of the wicks of this candle and this one. And this is also where the high is for London session on this candle, because this wick is taller than this one, where London session closed. So we're going to mark out the high of London session right here. Alright, so we have London session, and I'm actually going to write out these because it's useful. So this is our London low, and this right here is our London high. Alright, the next session I'm going to mark out is Asia session. Asia session. Now, Asia session, the reason I'm doing it for like 1 a.m., 6:30 a.m., this is for Pacific time when I trade, so it's going to be different from where you are. Yeah, that's the main reason why I'm doing that. Obviously, if I traded on like New York time, it would be different numbers, but these times that I'm using is for Pacific time of when these different sessions are opening and closing. So just to clarify that. So for Asia session, Pacific time, it opens at 4 p.m. wherever 4 p.m. is. 4 p.m. is going to be 1600, so this blue candle, and it closes at 1 a.m., which was right here at this blue candle. So obviously the low is going to be right here, and the high is actually the same as the London high in this case. So I'm going to mark out Asia low right here, and this is also Asia high. Alright, boom, got my sessions marked out. Now let's go back here, did our sessions, see the trend, the overall trend on the 4 hour. Real quick, I'm going to mark out the same way on MES. So we're going to go on the 1 hour and mark out same Asia and London. So we had London opening 1 a.m. Right, so wait, we had Asia low at this blue candle, and we had 1 a.m. Where is it? 1 a.m. right here. This is also same. So Asia low, Asia high, London high, and this here is London low. Alright, now we have our sessions on both MES and MNQ. So now let's see the trend on the 4 hour. Let's go to the 4 hour on MES and MNQ. Alright, so the market opens and let's find, alright, 6 o'clock in the morning. Or not 6 o'clock in the morning. Alright, market opens around here between these two candles. Now let's look at the 4 hour trend on yesterday's session. So 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. areas are the most important on the day before. They kind of let you know where the trend might be going. So yesterday's candle, on the 21st, we had a obvious bearish trend. But then what happened between these two New York sessions? We had a massive Doge candle right here signaling a reversal for the new New York open for today on the 22nd. So our bias based on this is bullish. So that's one ticker for a bullish trend is this. So this is our first thing for bullish trend. Now, and we see the same thing here on MES. Got these two 4 hour candles, 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. on yesterday on the 21st. Between hours 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. for today's New York session, we had a big Doge candle signaling a reversal to the upside. So, both on MNQ and MES, that's very good. Now let's look at any 1 hour or 4 hour fair value gaps. Now, fair value gap is between the first and third candle, and it's literally in the name, it forms a gap. Like, let's look here. Obviously this is, after I traded, but first candle, second candle, third candle, and notice we have a gap, right? I'll cover in a different video fair value gaps and why they're useful, but just for now, just know that I do use this in my bias. And so let's look for them. Right now we're in the 4 hour, so let's stay and see if there's any fair value gaps. So the session opened like 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, right? And I didn't notice any fair value gaps here on MNQ. However, notice on MES, we have a fair value gap right here that was formed yesterday between our 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. candle. So I'm going to mark that out, and I'm actually going to use yellow, it's just preference, for my 4 hour fair value gaps. Alright, so we have a fair value gap. Sweet. Now let's look if we have any order blocks, SMTs, or signs of liquidity, draws on liquidity. Well, none of these candles were here, right? We had draws on liquidity at Asia lows. So one of my biases was if we went below this, when market opened, we were teetering in this fair value gap. If market went below this, I would then form a bearish trend and go to Asia lows. But obviously that didn't happen, and I'll discuss that in a minute. So I didn't have any order blocks. I really didn't have any SMTs that I found or saw, but I did have a point of liquidity, and that point of liquidity was at Asia low for both MES and MNQ. Now let's go on the 1 hour and look for the same sorts of things. On the 1 hour, I didn't really see any formation of big fair value gaps on either, actually. So didn't find any fair value gaps, didn't find order block, SMT. Our liquidity is still staying at Asia lows, and our liquidity to the upside was if the market, when the market opened, it was just kind of consolidating in this fair value gap. And I said to myself, if the market breaks through this fair value gap, where is it gonna go? Well, we're almost at all-time highs here, right? And all-time highs on MNQ was just past London high and Asia high. So I kept that in mind. Okay, on MNQ, which is what I'm trading, if it gets past this order, or not order block, fair value gap on MES, it's going to head towards the London highs and Asia highs on MNQ. Where's it going to go here on MES? It's going to go to the all-time highs here because it would pass Asia high and London high. Once it passes this fair value gap, I also want to see it on MES pass Asia high and London high in order for me to enter a trade. Then we're going to go to 5-minute fair value gaps. So the 5-minute fair value gap that I saw on MNQ was right here. And on MES, we also formed the same fair value gap. Alright, and then to enter the trade, we're just going to look for a 1-minute confirmation. And all that means is on the 1-minute time frame, where did market open? Alright, so right about here. When market opened, I went onto the 1 minute time frame and I was just watching for on MES for the market to break past this fair value gap. So it's consolidating all this time, and I wanted it to pass the fair value gap, and I also wanted it to pass Asia high and London high. So what happened was we had an indication that it was going to go higher past Asia high and London high on the MES, but then we had a correction. We fell below this fair value gap, and then we continued to hold the trend. When we continued to hold the trend, that is then where I decided to take the trade. So when it broke past this, it also broke past London high and Asia high. And this is around the area where I took the trade. So when I took the trade on MNQ, these were the things I was looking for. I was looking for, and again, this isn't the last one, the last recap. I was looking for, is it breaking an order block? Alright, this is our order block. We're seeing a downtrend, and then I see a reversal Doge candle. I want it to move past here with the Doge candle, but it only wicks it, so I don't enter. And then I see a full body bullish candle close above the order block, confirming the bullish bias. And so then I waited then for this high to get taken. Once that high got taken, then I entered the trade here. And I exited, I exited only because of the amount of points, because I put my stop loss about here, I believe. And I was only targeting 50 points because on MES, I was only waiting for it to go higher to reach the all-time highs. And on MES, it wasn't even 50 points on the 5 minute. So 50 points on MNQ was as most I was really willing to go today. And yeah, that was that. So yeah, I mean, there will be more of these, but hopefully it's kind of all coming together with all of that. Yeah, and then after this will be the actual trade. So yeah, hopefully it all made sense, and there'll be another one tomorrow. So I just want to say something before I get into the actual trade. I forgot to show you on the sticky note, but I wrote my daily bias and my game plan in the morning when I was taking the trade. And like I said, it would be bearish due to the 5 minute fair value gap. It was resting at weekly, like if it's resting at the weekly fair value gap, and I wanted to target Asia lows. My game plan was I would wait for consolidation around the 4-hour fair value gap to close on the 5 minute, below that fair value gap, and that would signal confirmation to the downtrend. And I would honestly just wait for the liquidity to be hit on the London low. But if we did see momentum past the 4-hour fair value gap, then I would target the London highs, which is what I did. So just wanted to clarify that as well.